Hi, everybody. It's Alex Jarett again with my good friend John Szeder. John, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you today?
So great to see you. Now, John is a technology leader and chief technology officer. You're focused on high volume applications for both consumer and enterprise applications, correct?
Yes.
That's great. So I know when you joined the Board of Advisor program, one of the things that really excited me was your focus on helping people build and retain what you call elite engineering teams. And so you've agreed to do a series of leadership briefings on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here and share some of the wisdom that I have.
That's wonderful. We're happy to have you. And today's topic is called Executive Engineering Leadership. I can't wait to get into that. Before we do, everybody, if you're watching or listening to this, you can watch all of our leadership briefings, like the one here with John, at technologyexecutivesclub.com. All right, John, let's get started. Now, this topic is called Executive Engineering Leadership. And tell us a little about what you mean by that when you talk about today's briefing.
Yeah, absolutely. So over the course of my 30-year career, I've held a number of roles, either as a senior individual contributor or a senior executive on a management team for a large business. And a lot of the times when you get into those roles, the first time you take a role as an executive or the first time that you're promoted to CTO or staff architect, the rules change for you. You know, as you get into your career and you start this new role, the skills that got you to that point suddenly become a liability for your success in your new role, and you have to start developing new habits. And over the course of my career, from individual contributor to manager to director to executive, I had to fight my way through those individually without any help along the way and figure out the rules as I went. And I think that took a lot longer to be successful in each of those roles without having a good blueprint or a compass in front of me to help set the path.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that. As you know, I run the peer group you're involved in with a lot of C-level executives. And this is not the first time I've heard this, where people say, you know, I was doing great in this role, head engineer, whatever. And then all of a sudden I became head of all of engineering or head of all of technology. And now the job completely changes. So if you're going to talk to someone who just moved into this new role or maybe recently did and wants a little some advice, how do you succeed in this new role?
You know, I started mentoring people for that reason, because a lot of the times your default tendency is to do the things that you're good at, which is what got you promoted in the first place.
Right.
And a lot of times that's an anti-pattern, right? It's the things that got you promoted are the things they want you to stop doing in favor of new behaviors. You know, if you were an individual contributor, you become a manager and you start coding because you're good at it, that becomes bad. You know, when you start managing managers, if you start trying to interfere with the way that they're managing people versus, you know, giving them advice and just checking to see how they're managing their teams, it works against you all the way up to executive. And you have to take each time a step backwards from doing something directly. And, you know, sitting down with somebody and making sure that they're aware, hey, you're about to come into day-to-day free fall because your activities that you do on a regular basis are going to feel completely foreign to you. I think that that's the first thing I did to help a lot of people become successful in their new roles a lot quicker than I did.
So just what you're saying is just to change your point of view to realize that the role really is different. That's what you're talking about, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And to avoid the default tendency of going backwards in time and saying, I was very good at this thing, which got me promoted, therefore I'm going to keep doing it. I think that's the number one thing that people do that hurts them in the long run.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm a sports guy. It's, you know, we've talked about that, but it's like the coach who you can't pitch for the guy, you know, or lady. Exactly right. You know, you can't pitch for them. You got to let them get on the mound and pitch, right? So, you know, even though you may have been an all-star in your earlier career, you got to give them the space to throw strikes or not, right?
That's right.
Tell me more about what you mean by this blueprint for success that you've been working on, and what does it mean to actually be successful as a leader?
Yeah, absolutely. So over the course of my career, I've been responsible for helping other people achieve roles that I've held in the past, right? Hey, we have a first-time manager, we have a first-time director, or I need help becoming a vice president. So I sat down and I thought about all the things I did that were successful in those roles, and also the things that I did when I first attained those roles that are like an immediate, I'm going to do this reaction, and how to separate them, right? Because when you get into that new role, the things that you have to do, they're very different than the things that you've done in the past. And you need to take a step back and say, okay, this is what I need to do to be successful. This is what the new role demands from me. I've had people who've gone in and they told me I've been a vice president of engineering at a company, and I ask them questions, and they're either a staff engineer who's been given a fancy title because they're afraid they're going to leave, or they're still operating at a director level and they have no board exposure. They're not managing directors, and they just were given the title and have not been given the tools to be successful with that. So when they change jobs from a vice president of engineering at the company that was just a polite fiction into an actual role, suddenly they find they're like, I'm way out of my depth and I don't know what's happening here.
I like how you said that, a polite fiction. What occurs to me, John, that you're uniquely qualified to help people with this role, because you've actually for many, many years worked as a fractional CTO. You've really been the expert that they call in to not only fix massively complex, high volume problems, but also to transform the team to be able to handle those things, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I started doing fractional CTO work like 2010 or so, even before they called it fractional CTO work. Right. And it was largely a case of I've done such a good job of solving problems and building teams for people that I was on auto dial for a lot of people to, kind of like a call the bat phone, right? We have an emergency here and we need someone to come in and fix the problem. And half the time it was technology problems, but the other half the time it had nothing to do with technology. It was all people problems.
Right.
And understanding the transition from technology problems to people problems sometimes is a gap that people have to sort of step through and realize that that's largely what they're responsible for.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. So you're saying that somebody's watching this and maybe they became a manager in the last year and they're kind of waking up that it's not the same thing, or they woke up to it, but they may not have faced it yet. Or if you're facing it right now, how does it feel, John, once you're that person that comes to that realization that, hey, what I did as a brilliant engineer, it's not going to work anymore managing people?
It's either frustrating or terrifying in equal measure, right? You start doing stuff that you're good at, and suddenly you find out it's not working, or you're getting feedback to stop it, or being told, hey, this isn't what we expect you to do. And sometimes, they don't tell you what the expectation is. They just tell you what to stop doing, and they don't tell you what to start doing. And that's been one sort of the biggest challenges for people, and going, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? And they're like, well, you'll figure it out. You're a smart person. That's how you got here, right? Great, thanks.
That's what we'll try and do in some of these videos, I imagine. So we'll try and do through this vehicle. So having said that, as a starter, what would be the number one tip that you would give to someone watching this right now to actually, so they can finish this video and maybe start making a change today?
The first thing I would do is honestly, based on conversations I've had with other people in engineering leadership roles, is ask somebody else to tell their story. Right? See if you can pattern match on the behaviors that you should have by saying, hey, what should I be doing here? And maybe the person that gave you that promotion or the company that you're working for, they just want to give you bigger problems and they want you to solve them. And maybe they don't have that, but to speak to another engineering leader somewhere and say, hey, what should I be doing right now? I had a great friend who I helped him become a VP of engineering from a director of engineering. And a lot of that was sitting down and talking to him about, here's the things that you're going to want to present. He went to his roadmap meeting and blew everyone away with his presentation as sort of best of the executives at their offsite, and setting up that expectation for delivery and saying, this is what you need to do, as opposed to trying to figure it out or make it up and then getting a whole bunch of, no, that's not right, or no, don't do that. And saying, okay, this is what you actually should be doing. That's
great advice. You're actually saying seek out some type of mentor. Ask them the question, what should I be doing in this new role? So it always helps to have a mentor.
Yeah. And, one cautionary tip I would have is make sure that you go outside your reporting structure the first time you start asking these questions, right? You want to make sure that you have the safety of an agnostic reply that's going to be giving you some good feedback, but at the same time doesn't trigger somebody going, oh, did I just make a mistake? Right. So getting that external validation.
That's a good point. Don't ask your boss.
Right. Make sure you get it from someplace where you're going to get that feedback in an environment of safety that gives you the next steps, so you can sit down and say, okay, this is what I can do and impress the people who promoted me. And, if you're in a situation where you just got this promotion and it's a small company, you don't really know anyone, that's what I'm here for, right? I've been spending my whole career helping people by ones and twos, getting their promotions on a mentorship basis. And, I just realized for all the people that are going through this, which is 80 to 90% of everyone who's been promoted that I've ever spoken to, I want to be a vehicle to help people become more successful faster when they get those great career defining opportunities. So don't be afraid to reach out. I'm happy to answer your questions.
That's really a nice offer. So everybody, if you need help with something like this and just want to talk, feel free to reach out to John. John, that's all the time we have for today. Appreciate you doing this leadership briefing. Can't wait to do the next one with you.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Alex.